Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is our Arise News analyst, Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufa. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning. Yes, we'll start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. The lead story, INEC shifts governorship state assembly polls to March 18, says postponement to ensure adequate time to back up data stored on over 176,000 beavers used for presidential, National Assembly elections. Political parties can apply for certified true copies of back-end data of beavers. Appeal court refuses to stop commission from reconfiguring beavers. Yes, the shift in the governorship stroke state assembly polls, not expected, but given what INEC has to do concerning the reconfiguration of the beavers, it was almost unthinkable that they will accomplish this task in a couple of days before the polls. So they've shifted the polls, and Nigerians will have to be patient to get this right, hopefully, so that we don't have the kind of glitches we had during the presidential election. But the good thing around this time around is that unlike the 2019, when officially there was no beaver, there was no server anywhere, because you cannot have a machine without a server where those data are going into. But officially, INEC had no server in 2019. That was why when Atiku Abubakar was referring to server, he wants the data in server, of course, he never got one. But this time around, given the Electoral Act 2022 and the use of technology, officially, there is a server. And INEC has promised that all the information, the data in the beavers, will be stored and backed in the server. And all parties will have access to this information. But of course, what one will ask is that, given the Osun experience, it's like that the INEC has not factored that into their planning. Otherwise, we shouldn't be talking about what we're talking today that has led to the postponement of the governorship election to March 18. Other newspapers are reporting this story. The Guardian newspaper, court orders beavers reset as INEC shifts Gova polls to March 18, while the Daily Trust newspaper also reporting this story. Why we postponed governorship election, INEC commission gets nod to reconfigure beavers. Tinubu Atiku granted access to election materials. Buhari arrives Daura for polls. Yes, of course, giving all the parties access at the same time, of course, will prevent the Osun situation where two parties have different certified true copies from INEC. And I hope that will not arise again, because depending on when this information were released to the parties this time around, I hope it can be done in such a way that everybody are on the same page of the documents, so that that does not become a major issue in the case at the tribunal. Now, the Nigerian Tribune, INEC shifts governorship state assembly polls by 1 week. And of course, the story below the photograph, below the graph there, court gives INEC nod to recognize, to reconfigure beavers, grants Tinubu Obi permission to inspect election materials. Leadership newspaper also reporting this story. Hours after court ruling, INEC postpones governorship polls by 1 week to reconfigure beavers. The Nation newspaper, INEC shifts governorship assembly polls by 1 week. While the Punch newspaper also reporting this story, INEC shifts governorship assembly polls by 1 week. Now, above the masthead, there's a story there. Naira Buhari can be prosecuted after May 29, says a senior advocate of Nigeria for not obeying Supreme Court order concerning the old Naira before the last ruling, during which the Supreme Court ruled that all the old currencies are valid legal tender until December 31st. Now, whether anybody will still remember that after May 29, well, depending on how Nigerians are still suffering from this cash crunch, which is still very apparent. And somebody was asking, perhaps the Supreme Court would have just ordered the CBN to make the new currency available in all ATMs. Perhaps the CBN would have just complied and print more. And I don't know why the new currency is not being seen from the ATM machine. Does it mean the central bank has stopped producing more and distributing to banks that were now scrambling for the old currency? And of course, with all the problems associated with that, some people accepting, many not accepting it as a legal tender for transaction right now. So that disconnect within the system is giving a lot of problems to traders, many of whom cannot sell as much of their goods as they usually do because they are not accepting the old currency. Now, the Business Day newspaper has the story: insecurity, elections drive air travel rebound amid FX aviation fuel crisis. Yes, amid foreign exchange and fuel crisis, air travel in Nigeria rose last year owing to the spate of insecurity and month-long election campaigns. Of course, because even though it was, the air tickets became very expensive, but people had to cough out the money if you have to do long trips, because to do otherwise would be to be on the road, and not many people wanted to take that risk of being on the roads because of the insecurity that was common on the roads. And as such, there was a rebound in air travel, according to the Business Day report. Now, the foreign newspapers, quickly. The Guardian newspaper: Sunak facing clash with EU on unlawful assignment plans. Of course, the EU Commissioner for Human Affairs, Eva Johnson, is saying that, well, she has spoken with the Home Secretary of UK and told her clearly that this new plan runs against the grain of international law. Ruben, Rufai, and Ayo.
Quickly, the judgment by the court. It's important to realize that the Court of Appeal, the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, did a number of things. One, it has now granted leave of court to the APC and its candidate, Bola Tinubu, to also double-check INEC records, as it did last Friday, March 3, with the Labour Party and the People's Democratic Party. It has also granted a prayer of INEC to reconfigure. But the court did not say that INEC should postpone, because that was part of it. In that regard, INEC said reconfiguration should not stop the election. But INEC had a meeting yesterday and then resolved that given the shortage of time, they say it's all too close for them to be able to reconfigure and still conduct the election. So the election has now been postponed till March 18. What is the implication of this? It deepens uncertainty. It raises anxiety within the environment. It also raises the question that has been raised by the Situation Room, civil society, about whether or not reconfiguration means erosion. Is INEC going to erase data when it reconfigures, because INEC must still have that data that anybody can access at any other time. It raises questions about electoral accountability. Some people will gain from it. Some candidates probably need a little more time. Some other candidates probably will face issues of cost because now they have an extra week of campaign. If you've already run out of oxygen, then of course you'll be struggling for survival. But whatever it is, it looks like the tribunal has tried to be fair to all parties concerned. But the question remains, how prepared is INEC? INEC has said it will obey the order of the court, but would INEC not raise questions further about trust, which we have raised this morning, and also about integrity and accountability? But the uncertainty survives. Fitch, the rating agency, has already said we should be worried about social stability because the uncertainty is really serious. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that clarification, Doctor, and thank you, Mr. Ifeni, for the newspaper review.